And today I want to talk a little bit about you and your well-being. I know I often talk about your child's burnout, but parent burnout is one of the really big risks that we as parents run when we are taking care of our children who are in burnout full time. And so I really wanted to talk about that today because it's a very real challenge for a lot of us. And I wanted to give you a free resource to help you and support you with this. So I know when my child was in burnout, just how much my own mental health struggled because I spent a lot of time just co-regulating with them all day. I was worried all the time. There was lots of pressures and stress on me as a parent. A lot of times it felt like I was just living 5 minutes at a time. And that was really hard. It was really hard on me. It was really hard on my nervous system. There were several times where I felt like I was burnt out myself. And there's so much pressure. And I've spoken to a few parents this week who have said to me, every time I try to just take 5 minutes for myself or do something for myself, my child needs me 24/7. Me not doing what they want me to or not being directly next to them on the couch will, just causes a major meltdown. And I just feel like I am not even a person anymore. I'm just like a nervous system, a co-regulating nervous system. I don't have, my needs aren't acknowledged here, and it's very hard for me to keep going. So that's why I wanted to chat to you today. So today I'm going to be talking about the following three things. Why reducing your own demands is crucial for both you and your child, because low demand parenting isn't just lowering your child's demands. You need to be lowering your own demands as well. But that takes time, that takes practice. Also, I'm going to help you to identify what is truly important to you and then create a bare minimum plan with you for yourself and your child. And I will have a free resource, a free PDF that you can go and download to be able to work this out, where I just talk through all the steps and help you to do that. So why does parental well-being matter? Well, the thing is that you are the person that is holding it all together. And if you don't look after yourself, then who's going to look after everybody else? There is a huge link between the stress that you're carrying and your child's burnout recovery, because when we are low of spoons ourselves, or we have low internal resources, we are a lot more likely to not have patience, not being able to be an effective co-regulator. For me, when I know that my spoons are really low, I can really, the first sign that shows up for me is resentment. Resentment towards my child, resentment towards my husband. I feel like I'm just doing everything for everybody else and nobody is looking after me. But of course, it's my job to look after myself. But it can be really hard when you're in the everyday grind of parenting a child in burnout to be able to see anywhere past this situation. I I liken this often to, creating a shit portrait. So, when we're in in a shitty situation, like parenting a child through burnout, it can color our whole lens of how we see absolutely everything through that lens. So, in the past, I've likened that to, like tapping your paintbrush into the shit situation and then painting the whole thing. And you can't see past that because it is just so all consuming. It affects us and our mental health, our emotional regulation, our decision making, and our connection with our child, because we're just constantly in survival mode, the part of our brain that just wants to protect us. And when we're in that part of our brain, connecting with another human being is really difficult. We shut ourselves off from our neocortex and our prefrontal cortex, which helps us to make good decisions. And it can just feel like you're just kind of in a fog. So I'm hoping that we can just kind of do a little breathing exercise together right now to just help us to engage part of that neocortex. And then we can perhaps do some work together on trying to figure out what is the thing that is truly important to you, what are your true priorities, and what are some of the things that you can let go of. So let's just take a moment to take a big deep breath in through our nose and then breathe out through our mouth. And I just want you to take a moment to ground yourself through your senses. So we're just going to do this together. It's a very simple exercise that we can do at any stage just to help us to come back into our bodies. So the first thing I'd like you to do is just to look around you. Look around your environment and notice 5 things that you can see. And just name them in your head. So if this was me, I've got a glass of water, I've got a plant, I've got my computer, I've got my microphone, I have a pen. So those are 5 things I can see. The next thing I want you to do, if it's safe for you to do this, close your eyes. And I want you just to really tune into your body, the feeling sense of your body, and just focus on 4 things that you can feel. So it might be, feeling your toes inside your shoes. If you're sitting, it might be where your body connects with the chair. It might be the feeling of your clothing on your body. Might be like your hair up against your neck. Just tune into 4 things that you can feel. The next thing that I want you to do while you have your eyes closed is to scan the environment and tune into your sense of hearing. What are 3 things that you can hear? So it might be the sound of my voice, it might be something in the background, it might be the hum of your computer. What are 3 things you can hear? And now I want you to just direct your attention to your sense of smell and just see, are there 2 things that you can smell at the moment? And then the last thing is our sense of taste. Is there 1 thing that you can taste? Now, when you're ready, just take another big deep breath in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. And so hopefully you have some part of yourself that's back into the thinking part of your brain. Now, I use a lot of these with my membership. I do offer a free nervous system reset every week where I offer a little tip, a little thing that we can use as parents to help us to regulate ourselves, to take care of our vagus nerve so that we can feel more, more in touch with who we are in our body and look after our nervous system so that it doesn't burn out. So if that's something that you're interested in, let me know, and I can send you some information. So what I'd like us to think about now, and this was I think it was maybe Lisa Kordoff where I got this idea from, and it's something I've always held on to, especially when things have gotten really hectic and I felt like I've been juggling a lot of things. And so the idea here is that, like, we're juggling all these balls, right? But not all the balls that we are juggling have the same urgency, have the same importance, have the same priority. We have glass balls, which are the things that if we let those balls drop to the ground, they are going to shatter, and it's going to mean, some type of crisis in your family. And then we have all these other balls that we're juggling, and sometimes we don't even realize that we're juggling them, but they're like rubber balls. If we let them drop, they're just going to fall to the ground. They're not going to break. And sometimes, like later on, we can catch them again. And so I want you just to stop and think for a moment. If you're listening to this in the podcast, you can pause the episode here and maybe even just grab a pen and paper and just write down what are your glass balls and what are your rubber balls. So an example of a glass ball might be your mental health. It might be your child's health. It might be, making sure that you keep the lights on. The basic sort of things that we have to do, otherwise the whole thing just falls down. And then what are some of the things or some of the tasks that you're doing in the day that are actually rubber balls that you can let go of? What are your non-negotiables? And what are some of the things, some of the load that you're carrying that is actually not necessary? It's draining you. It's taking away your energy, and you don't actually need to be carrying them. But you might not have thought that it's possible to actually drop this ball, or you might feel like it's expected for you to carry this ball or to juggle this ball. And here's the time for you to be able to give yourself permission to let that ball drop. And if you're watching this live or if you're watching this in recording, I'd love for you to tell me in the comments what are glass balls for you? What are rubber balls for you? If you're watching this as a podcast, let me know in the comments. And what are some of the expectations that you're holding really, really tight to yourself that you can actually let go of? Sometimes I talk about like having the 1950s housewife on your shoulder telling you all the things that you should be doing in order to fall into the category of a good parent. What are some of the areas that you're shoulding yourself? An example of this might be that you're really stressing to keep your house tidy, and because you've internalized the thought or the idea that if your house is a mess, that means that you are lazy or you're a slob, or just insert any sort of label that you might have been given for if you are messy or you're not keeping a beautifully pristine, tidy house. So, one that might be a rubber ball that you're carrying, that might be something that you might need to let drop. If mess is something that really triggers you, you might just choose one room in your house that's a room for you, that you keep neat and tidy, that you have control over, but you might let other areas of the house, you might let that go in those areas. So the next thing that we're going to do is, once you have established your glass balls and your rubber balls and you've categorized them, I want you to think about creating a bare minimum plan. So a bare minimum plan is a simplified, low demand routine that meets the core needs of you and your family while reducing stress. So here are instructions on how to do this. As I said, I have included a PDF that you can download, and I am going to just put it on the screen now. This is where you can go to get your bare minimum plan. So tanyavalentin.co/minimum. If you go here, it'll show you'll be able to go and download that plan. But basically what you do in a bare minimum plan is you list your weekly or your daily tasks and you categorize them. Are they essential or are they optional? Is it a glass ball or is it a rubber ball? And then ask yourself for those tasks, can I eliminate them? Can I reduce them? Or can I delegate them? There's a fourth thing that you can do here, I got this idea from Martha Beck, and she talks about, can you better that task? So if you can't reduce it, if you can't delegate it, if you can't eliminate it, can you better it? Like, for example, I used to find cleaning the house to be a real drain of my energy. It was a real chore and I absolutely hated it. I dreaded it. But then I changed my mindset around it and I started to see it as a time where I could actually do something for myself. So I pictured, like, as I was tidying things and organizing things and putting things in their place, that I was almost like organizing my brain while I was doing it. Another way that, and I really love the outcome of like a nice, clean, tidy space because that's visually appealing to me. Another way that I make better that activity for myself or make that activity my time is by listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something that relates to my special interests. So that's one way that you can better a task and reclaim some of that as for yourself. So so that's sort of the first two steps of that. Then ask yourself, if a task is essential and you can't better it, what are some ways that you can reduce the demands of that task or that demand? Where can you release some pressure from that? So it might be that you release your idea that you have to have a home cooked meal every day. It might look like meal prepping and just, making sure that you have safe foods and have things that you can just pull out of the freezer or the fridge and just heat up instead of spending all your time and your spoons on cooking every day. It might mean that your family eats chicken nuggets or beans on toast or scrambled egg on toast or whatever, and you let go of some of those ideas of like, we have to do all these things around meal times. It might mean that, we let go of the idea that everybody needs to sit around the table and eat dinner. Maybe we allow people to sit in their own rooms and eat food, or if your child really struggles at dinner time, maybe you're allowed them to have a device at the dinner table. Letting go of some of these things, it doesn't make you lazy. It isn't cheating. It's actually looking after yourself and your energy and saying, my energy, my well-being is more important than these little tasks that I have given myself. I was speaking to a mum recently, and we were talking about how when her child, she gets very little time where her child will, be on an iPad or do something. And so when she does that, when her child does do that and is distracted, she spends all her time running around, doing tasks, doing jobs. And instead of actually taking that time to just relax, sit down, do something that actually feeds her energy rather than drains her of energy. A lot of these things are, what we've been conditioned to do in our mind rather than actual have tos. So, and the other thing is to build in rest and self-care and make those non-negotiables, because really they're essential. And I think another really important thing that we don't often talk enough about as parents is also making self-compassion a really important part of our lives too. Taking time to actually physically tell ourselves or feed ourselves kindness as if we were a really good friend to ourselves is so essential for helping us through as we navigate this burnout. And, I hear you. Lots of parents might be saying things like, I should be doing more. I'm not doing enough. As I say, that 1950s housewife might be, sitting on your shoulder, really screaming in your ear. You might find it really hard to say no. You might find it really hard to ask for help. And so some of these things are things that we really might have to work on and to, be able to say no. And I realize that often the barrier with saying no is that we don't want to upset people or we don't want to inconvenience people. And a lot of that for me was realizing, because I'm a reformed people pleaser, a lot of that for me was actually realizing that when it comes to boundaries, I can't have my cake and eat it, to use that cliche. But basically what it boils down to is my job when setting and maintaining a boundary is to set and maintain the boundary. And we're doing it out of love for ourselves. We're doing it out of love for our family. And that is my job. That's all I have control over. How somebody else takes my boundary or how they feel about my boundary isn't my responsibility. And so part of the trick with creating boundaries and saying no is to start telling yourself and telling your body that you are safe, even though somebody else disagrees with you or somebody's upset with you. Because a lot of us have spent time in the fawning space, and we have used fawning as a survival mode to appease everybody else and their feelings and their emotions. And so it feels really unsafe for us when we encounter confrontation or somebody that doesn't agree with us or somebody whose feelings are upset by our boundary. And so, that is something that we all of us, if your primary survival technique or survival strategy is fawning, or survival state is fawning, because often we don't physically use it as an intentional strategy, that is something that you may need to work on as a parent, as a person, to help you to start releasing some of that fear of upsetting others. If this is something that you have identified through listening to this, that you might need some help or support with, please reach out to me. Please, we can book a free 30-minute call where we can talk through some of this stuff and we can see how I can support you. I've also I'm just going to bring it up now. I also have a membership. I'm going to just bring up tanyavalentine.co/membership. This is a membership for parents specifically who are navigating their neurodivergent child's burnout recovery. And we have things like resources in the group that you can use to support you on your journey, as well as a monthly coaching call where we talk about different things that might be we might need some support with, or your situation, or areas that parents need some help in as they're navigating this recovery journey. So if you'd like to know more about it, send me a DM, send me on either Instagram or Facebook, or you can go to this link and join us there. You can join us risk-free with a 7-day free trial so that you can see whether this is something that you might enjoy, or, and if you want to leave within the 7 days, you can keep all the resources that you have utilized. There are some lovely joining bonuses. Those are yours to keep. And so there's no risk in joining us, and we'd love to have you. So wrapping this up, I just want to leave you with 3 little tasks that you can do. So use the bare minimum plan, create your bare minimum plan, and also just remember, you are not failing by doing less. You are prioritizing your well-being. You're listening to the wisdom of your body. When our body budget is in negative, it's very hard for us to keep going. So please take time to just look after yourself in some little way. And I really invite you to share your thoughts or your questions in the comments, or send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. My handle is Tanya Valentine NZ, and I look forward to connecting with you again sometime soon. For now.